It is a profound necessity that we sit down at the dawn of 2026 to discuss the state of your empire, because as Niccolo Machiavelli once observed, the lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps, and a lion to frighten wolves. Most of you are walking into this year with neither the cunning of the fox nor the strength of the lion. You are entering 2026 as vassals, owing your labor to lords you've never met, trading your future for the fleeting comfort of a plastic card. Today we are going to have a cold, practical conversation about what you must do differently with your money this year, if you ever intend to stop being a subject and start being a sovereign. Before we dive into the mechanics of your liberation, join a growing community of men who refuse to be mediocre by subscribing to this channel. This is a tribe of men dedicated to the ruthless pursuit of financial sovereignty and long-term legacy. We must begin with the most effective weapon used against your potential: debt. In 2026, getting out of debt, or at least launching a relentless campaign against it, is not merely a suggestion. It is a strategic requirement for your survival. We know the power of not carrying debt, not just for the emotional peace it brings, but for the raw mathematical leverage it restores to your hand. When you are in debt, your income, the very lifeblood of your estate, leaves you every month to fortify someone else's fortress. You are effectively paying for the privilege of staying weak. Consider the modern elite, the top 1% who truly understand power. They do not use debt to buy depreciating toys or vacations they can't afford. They use their capital to build, to invest, and to conquer. Your number one wealth-building tool is your income, and every dollar you send to a creditor is a soldier you've surrendered to the enemy. If you took the hundreds or thousands of dollars you currently waste on car payments and high-interest consumer debt and redirected that force into investments, you would become a millionaire with startling speed. It is staggering how much of our mathematical strength we willingly surrender. We sign up for car payments as if they are a birthright, use credit cards for vacations we haven't earned, and carry student loans like a heavy millstone around our necks. This piles up until your life is a series of defensive maneuvers just to keep your head above water. Getting rid of that weight is what allows you to move from defense to offense. In The Prince, Machiavelli reminds us that he who is the cause of another becoming powerful is the ruin of himself. Every time you hit submit on a credit card purchase for something you don't need, you're making the banks powerful and ensuring your own ruin. To take control of your money, you must adopt the most effective method for debt destruction ever devised, the debt snowball. You pay the minimum on everything and focus all your remaining firepower on the smallest debt first. You don't look at the interest rate, you look at the win. This is where the math nerds will argue, but they forget that personal finance is 80% behavior and only 20% head knowledge. The problem with your money isn't a lack of a calculator. The problem is the man in the mirror. If you can get that man to behave, he can become wealthy beyond his imagination. We all know what to do. It's like a diet. We know it's about caloric intake, but we keep hitting submit on the cart and spinning ourselves into oblivion. You cannot fix a behavior problem with a math solution. You fix it with a psychological victory. Paying off the smallest debt gives you hope. It gives you the confidence to believe that you can actually win this war. It's like hitting the gym and seeing the first 2 pounds drop off. You realize, I can do this. And as you stack those small wins, your intensity grows, your sacrifice deepens, and you begin to love the sensation of winning more than the comfort of spending. This method works because it accounts for the probability of completion. People don't finish the mathematically correct path because they lose heart. They finish this path because they see the enemy falling. As those first few debts disappear, your momentum becomes an unstoppable force. The payments you once sent away are now freed up to be used as heavy artillery against your larger debts. This creates a mathematical progression that accelerates your journey toward total independence. You're no longer just surviving, you are building a war chest. This is the first step toward the life you want. But you cannot do it alone if you have a partner in your household. To truly secure your estate, you must understand how to consolidate your forces and eliminate the internal friction that destroys most men before they even start. If you're ready to stop being a vassal and start building your empire, comment the word sovereignty below to lock in this commitment. Now, a kingdom divided against itself cannot stand, and a household with two separate treasuries is a kingdom already inviting its own ruin. This brings us to a hard truth that many of you will find uncomfortable: the necessity of combining finances with your spouse. In 2026, if you are married, your goal must be total tactical unity. I see so many men living in a state of financial segregation, keeping his money and her money as if they are roommates rather than partners in a dynasty. This is born of fear and a lack of trust. But Machiavelli taught us that a prince must always seek the path of strength through unity. When you share your spending and your goal setting, you're doing more than just moving numbers around a screen. You are aligning your fears, your dreams, and your very value systems. The elites of history, from the great banking families like the Medicis to the modern titans of industry, understood that a family office is a single engine of power. They didn't build empires by working at cross purposes under the same roof. They consolidated their resources to maximize their impact on the world. There is no data, no piece of research, and no historical precedent that suggests marriages are better when the money is kept separate. In fact, all the evidence points to the contrary. Your probability of building massive wealth is exponentially higher when you work as a single unit. I often hear men say that their wife just handles it, or that they let her do it because they aren't good with numbers. This is a dereliction of duty. If you have a daddy taking care of a little girl, or a mommy taking care of a little boy, you don't have a marriage, you have a dependency. Both adults must have a voice. Even if one of you is the nerd, the tactical advisor who enjoys the spreadsheets, the other must still be the sovereign who reviews and approves the decree. You cannot be relationally lazy and expect to win. In business, you can delegate the work, but you can never delegate the responsibility. As the saying goes, you can only expect what you inspect. You must stay involved to ensure the work is getting done according to the vision you've set together. This leads us to the third requirement for your 2026 strategy, the monthly budget. This is your tactical map. Most people live life in a reactive haze. They get paid, they spend, and then they wonder where the money went when the next bill hits. This is the behavior of a peasant, not a prince. To win, you must be proactive. Winning at anything is an intentional act. You don't wander into a high-quality career or raise great children by accident. It requires a thoughtful, calculated process. Stephen Covey noted that the first habit of highly effective people is being proactive. They happen to things. Things don't happen to them. If you were hired to manage a company's money and you handled it the way you handle your own, you would be fired for gross incompetence. You cannot expect the universe or any higher power to bless your finances if you treat them with such casual disregard. No one becomes wealthy and stays wealthy without a plan. The budget is that plan. It is the document that tells every single dollar where to go so that you aren't left wondering where it went. I want you to take a moment here to think about your own situation. Are you and your partner operating as a unified front, or are you two separate entities living under one roof? Share a reflection in the comments on how your current financial structure is either helping or hindering your progress toward the goals we've discussed. Many people feel overwhelmed by the idea of a budget because they view it as a cage. They think it's a list of all the things they aren't allowed to do. But I want you to reframe this through the lens of power. A budget is not a restriction, it is a permission to spend. It is the peaceful yes. When you have a plan, you can go to the grocery store or buy a gift for your family without a shred of guilt, because you know exactly how it fits into the larger strategy. It frees you from the stress of the unknown. I remember when this concept was first being taught. The nerds saw it as a tactical execution, but the free spirits saw it as liberation. It allows your yes to be a powerful, decisive yes because it is backed by the reality of your treasury. If you need a tool to manage this, use something like EveryDollar to track every transaction daily. It is the modern ledger for the modern man. But a map is useless if you don't have the discipline to follow it, especially when the path gets narrow and the terrain gets rough. To reach the summit, you must be willing to endure a period of extreme austerity that would break a lesser man. To build an empire that lasts, one must first master the art of the strategic retreat. This brings us to our fourth point. You must learn to say a cold, decisive no to the trivial extras that are currently bleeding your treasury dry. If you are in a season of struggle, if you are still shackled by debt or standing on the shaky ground of a shallow emergency fund, then every subscription, every unused gym membership, and every luxury meal is a leak in your fortress wall. Machiavelli noted in The Prince that a prince should not mind the reproach of being a miser, because in time he will be recognized as more liberal when his subjects see that through his parsimony his revenues are sufficient to defend himself. In modern terms, you must be willing to be called the Grinch today so that you can be the king tomorrow. The top 1% did not start by indulging in the comforts of the masses. Jeff Bezos famously used a discarded door as a desk in the early days of Amazon. And the titans of history often lived lives of monastic discipline while building the capital necessary for conquest. These extras are sucking your income dry. But if you cut them out for a season, you will find hundreds, perhaps thousands of dollars returning to your command. You are not ruining your life. You are living like no one else now so that later you can live and give like no one else. It is about the long game. If you are ready to prune the dead weight from your life, comment the words "cut" deep below to signal your intent. Once you have secured your internal treasury through austerity, you must turn your attention to your defenses. In 2026, many men ignore the boring adult necessity of insurance. But this is a fatal strategic error. Insurance is the armor of your estate. You can play a brilliant offense and build a massive fortune, but if you leave your flank exposed, a single catastrophic event can shatter everything you've built. The elite do not leave their wealth to chance. They use insurance brokers and tactical checkups to ensure they have the maximum protection for the minimum cost. They shop their car and homeowners insurance as a package because they know that winning is an intentional act. They don't just set it and forget it. They inspect their coverage every time their life changes, when they buy a house, have a child, or change careers. They avoid the junk policies, the short-term disability traps, and the niche cancer policies, and focus their resources on the big risks that could actually sink the ship. This isn't just about money. It's about ensuring that your defense is as relentless as your offense. The wise sovereign also knows that he must never bet his entire kingdom on a single outcome. This is the principle of diversification. Even in a single finance class, they teach you that there is safety in spreading your portions around. Machiavelli's world was one of shifting alliances and unpredictable disasters, much like our modern economy. The Bible even echoes this in Ecclesiastes, advising us to divide your portion to 7 or even to 8, for you do not know what misfortune may occur on the earth. This is why we favor mutual funds, specifically growth and income, aggressive growth, and international funds. When you bet everything on one trend like a single stock or the latest crypto frenzy, you're not an investor, you are a gambler. But when you spread your capital across 90 to 200 different companies through a good Roth IRA or 401k, you're building a resilient machine that can withstand the failure of any single part. The people who build real lasting wealth understand that safety and increased gain go hand in hand when you refuse to put all your eggs in one basket. Finally, in this age of digital warfare, you must protect your name and your privacy with the same intensity you protect your gold. Every coupon, newsletter, or giveaway you sign up for is an invitation for shady data brokers to sell your personal information. Your digital life is a part of your estate, and it must be cleaned and guarded. This is why tools like Delete Me are essential in 2026. They act as a digital cleaning crew, removing your info from the sites you've never even heard of. Protecting your peace of mind is part of maintaining your strength. Furthermore, as you build your empire, you must consider the education of the next generation. Just as the elite families of the past carefully curated the influences on their heirs, you must ensure your children are being fed truth rather than the mindless drivel of modern media. Using platforms like Minnow to provide biblical character-building content for your family is a strategic investment in the quality of your descendants. You are not just building a bank account, you're building a legacy, and that requires guarding every entrance to your home, both physical and digital. While we have secured your treasury and fortified your defenses, the ultimate battle for your sovereignty in 2026 is fought within the mind. Machiavelli understood that fortune is the arbiter of one half of our actions, but she still leaves us to direct the other half. We live in a world that thrives on your fear. Between inflation, the housing market, and the constant noise of election cycles, there is a heavy macro-level cloud designed to make you feel small and powerless. But leading with fear is the mark of a subject, not a ruler. When you make decisions based on big emotional shifts like fear, you almost always make the wrong decision. You must learn to control what you can control and surrender the rest. If you cannot fix interest rates or the nonsense spewed on the evening news, then stop letting them dictate your internal state. We saw this during the 2008 recession and the COVID-19 era. The men who thrived were those who refused to be paralyzed by the darkness. They understood that while they couldn't control the storm, they could certainly control the sails of their own ship. There is a particular brand of negativity in the air today, a sense of hopelessness that suggests the little man can no longer get ahead. This narrative is a trap. It breeds a victimhood mentality that gives you a false entitlement to stay mediocre. The truth is that in any generation, 90% of your outcomes are the direct result of your inputs. It is not the president, the boomers, or the global economy that will determine your wealth. It is your discipline and your willingness to take the next right step. Consider those who survived the devastation of Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans. When the city was in ruins and the situation felt hopeless, the survivors who ultimately won were those who took control of what they could. Many of them moved, uprooted their lives, and started over in new cities where they could build. They didn't wait for a rescue that might never come. They acted. If you find yourself in a job or a city that offers no path to victory, then change your circumstances. You are not a tree. You have the power of movement and the mandate of self-improvement. Before we move into the final pillar of your legacy, take a second to lock in this mindset. Comment the words "own it" below to affirm that you are the master of your outcomes, not a victim of your circumstances. We must also address the common delusion of generational warfare, specifically regarding the housing market. Every generation believes they have been uniquely priced out of the world. In the mid-1980s, a modest home cost $80,000, and people who had seen their parents buy houses for $12,000 25 years earlier felt the same despair you feel today. Now those $80,000 homes are worth $400,000 or $600,000. The numbers change, but the struggle is constant. What has truly changed is the standard of living we expect. We want more space, more luxury, and more convenience than previous generations ever dreamed of. Machiavelli noted that whosoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times. You cannot compare yourself to a false past. You must deal with the reality of 2026 as it is, not as you wish it to be. This might mean buying a smaller house, moving to a more affordable market, or sacrificing luxuries for a longer period. Success is available to those who are willing to pay the price that the current era demands. This leads us to the preservation of your empire through succession planning. It is a grim reality that death is certain, yet many men live as if they are immortal, neglecting to create a will. To leave your estate in shambles is an act of hostility toward your family. As the saying goes, if you hate your family, don't leave a will. Without a clear decree, your death will trigger a civil war among those you love most, mired in grief and greed. A will is not a complicated document. It is a tactical instruction for the distribution of your power. You must update it as your life changes. Marriages, births, and acquisitions are all shifts in the landscape that require a new map. Communicate your plans clearly while you are still alive. Ensure that the people who will manage your wealth and those who will care for your children know exactly what is expected of them. Do not let your legacy be defined by drama and strife. Let it be defined by the order and foresight you displayed while you held the throne. Finally, we must discuss the spoils of victory. There is no point in conquering the world if you become a prisoner to your own parsimony. For those of you who have followed the path, who have crushed your debt, built your fortress, and diversified your holdings, there comes a time when you must learn to spend. This is often the hardest lesson for a man who has spent years in the trenches of sacrifice. You have built a saving muscle, but you have let the spending muscle atrophy. You must practice enjoying the fruits of your labor. If you have a net worth of $10 million, you do not need permission to buy a luxury car. You need the wisdom to understand that wealth is a tool for both impact and enjoyment. Live like no one else now so that later you can live and give like no one else. Be generous, treat those around you, and enjoy the life you have fought so hard to create. If you found value in this deep dive into the sovereign mindset, subscribe to this channel and join a growing community of men who are reclaiming their futures and building legacies that will outlast them. Take control of your money, execute your plan, and create the life of power and peace you deserve.